This episode is brought to you by the Denver Art Museum. Make your holiday plans today to see All Stars, American artists from the Phillips Collection, now on view at the Denver Art Museum. All Stars features some of the best American art from the Washington, D.C.-based Phillips Collection, one of the most celebrated collections of American art in the United States. See landmark works by more than 50 artists, including Edward Hopper, Jackson Pollock, Georgia O'Keeffe, Child Hassam, Jacob Lawrence, and so many more. All Stars is only on view for a limited time. Buy your tickets today at denverartmuseum.org. That's denverartmuseum.org. Today on CityCast Denver, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. After barely surviving her last election in 2022, she tried to cool it with the antics. But instead, the Boebert show went global with the Grope heard round the world. So will 2024 prove to be the end of her political career? My producer Paul Caroli and I are digging through all the latest muck with a couple of returning guests, Ian Silveri and Jason Bain. They are Democratic Party operatives, the co-hosts of the Get More Smarter podcast, and they know Boebert's political future as well as anyone. And yes, this episode has some explicit moments. Today is Wednesday, December 20th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Ian Silveri and Jason Bain, welcome back to CityCast Denver.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Oh my gosh, we're so happy to be here.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Paul.
Well, I guess I lost a bet, so it's my job to explain what we're going to try to do here.
Is that how this works? You guys just like bet?
Sometimes.
What was the bet?
I feel like
there wasn't a bet. There was.
I was
we
probably
talked
Paul,
about it.
you do it.
Yeah.
Wait, so was the bet that you have to talk to us? That was the loser?
No. We knew we wanted to talk to you two. We definitely knew that.
Explain where we are, why we're talking about what we're talking about.
But about a month ago, I had this crazy idea. You know, Lauren Boebert had such a big year. She's so fun to talk about it. I see in our numbers, our audience loves when we talk about it. I think you guys probably see the same thing. Yeah. So what if we did like a big Lauren Boebert, Christmas special or like an end of the year, like where is she? And then Ian, we talked and you were like, well, there's actually a lot of new information that's happening. I think people would probably want to know about. And so that's what we want to know about.
She's made plenty of news through what we call the Boebert scandal back in September. But ever since then, it's not like she's been quiet. It's not like she's been doing nothing. She's just been doing like slightly lower boil stuff. And we see the same thing in our audience, so that Jason and I were jokingly referring to this as the Lauren Boebert 2024 Holiday Clicktacular Special. Because we're probably going to get a bunch of those as a result of this.
What is that right now? Is this like lefties circling the wagons or something? Like what's happening? What is this moment?
Man, it's just you can't look away. It's every day there's like another insane infraction. She spent last week in New York City with George Santos while he's making like $300,000 a month on Cameo.
And I think for Republicans, we'll get into this, but I think the Boebert scandal was the nail in her coffin.
I can't wait to talk about that.
But I think even Republicans now are like, oh my God, Lauren Boebert. And they're sort of on where the liberals were like getting annoyed with her. Now everyone's sort of annoyed with her, and she's gone bipartisan in that way.
So the great uniter, Lauren Boebert.
Well, let's get into one of these things because there's one in particular, Ian, and you said you found this story. This is a picture.
Well, this wasn't me, to be clear.
The Leadville 100. Yeah, where did this come from?
A friend of mine
here?
is just, out there scrolling the internet, looking at photos, and comes across this picture of, and it's like pattern recognition. Like when you look at something long enough, you tend to see it faster or more places, right? So he sees like baseball hat, and he's like, well, wait a second. And there she is at the finish line for the Leadville 100 bicycle race. And she's cheering someone on. Lo and behold, who is she cheering on? But one Quinn Gallagher. So
bar owner she's been seen with.
He's the Boebert guy.
He's the guy in the Boebert. You've all seen the videos. We don't have to belabor the point here.
And, well, he was a groper.
A little bit of both.
Both.
I guess so. I thought they were against gropers. So here's the headline from the UK Daily Mail, who is now apparently the British tabs are reporting on like Colorado cycling races. This is how.
You have any idea how that happened, by the way?
I can't really say. The universe is a wonderful place, and sometimes things just bang around, and here we are. So here's the headline, which is like one of those long UK headlines. Exclusive, all red. Lauren Boebert used campaign funds to buy tickets to cheer boyfriend Quinn Gallagher onto this, I fucking love this shade, 774th place in grueling Colorado bike ride weeks before a couple were kicked out of Beetlejuice performance. So this
That's the headline.
begs a bunch of, that's the entire headline. Yeah, I didn't paraphrase. So this begs a couple questions. Because she told TMZ during this same period of time, she implied, she's really good at this. She's kind of lies by omission, where she doesn't say what's happening, but she implied that was her first date. It wasn't, because back in whenever this was, July, she was spending campaign money on seeing her boyfriend, then boyfriend, I guess, at the race. Leadville's not in her district.
Campaign money?
Yeah.
How do you know it was campaign money?
Because she has to disclose it. Because she spent $339 on event tickets for the Leadville 100 MTB race in August. That's when it was.
Boebert has realized long ago, when, Colorado Polls was the first to report this in November 2020, after she had won her first election, before she was sworn in, that she had spent $20,000 on campaign funds for quote unquote mileage reimbursement, which is the equivalent of driving around the planet 1.5 times.
District's not that big.
It's
not
pretty
that
big.
big. It's big,
but it's not
that big,
circumnavigate the globe 1.5 times big. But
nothing happened from that. And so I think she's realized that
people aren't going to look that
I can
closely.
just spend, they might file an ethics complaint, but nothing will happen.
But this is what George Santos got actually ethics committee violation for, was spending campaign money on Hermes and OnlyFans and all sorts of other stuff. So the line seems pretty blurry, especially when it comes to enforcement. But this wasn't actually the end of the story at the Leadville 100, because we unpacked the finances of this whole thing. So check it out. On July 31st of this year, Boebert's campaign paid Hooch Craft Cocktail Bar $317 for event catering. That is Quinn Gallagher's bar in Aspen, which famously hosted drag shows, which she is ethically, allegedly against.
Right.
On August 11th that year, her campaign Facebook page posted about her appearance at a veterans event in Archuleta County at the same time. Boebert's official Facebook account posted about her visiting a community forum in Alamosa. Then he competed the Leadville 100, and then she spent campaign money on a hotel at the Fairfield Inn and Suites. So she's spending campaign money to go see her boyfriend, and then sneaking across the border back to her own district to have a little event, and then coming back and doing boyfriend stuff. It's all weird.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say that this particular affair has not helped her campaign.
No.
Personally.
I think it ended it.
You do?
I do.
Why?
The Beetlebert thing, the vaping and the groping and the yelling and the taking pictures and videos and yelling at a pregnant woman.
And the "Do You Know Who I Am" classic.
Right. Yeah. That made her embarrassing to the establishment Republicans in a different way.
How? I want to talk about this. This is where I'm super bothered. Go on.
The thing I think that bothers them the most is the "Do you know who I am" part.
Is it that?
I do think so.
Because the focus felt a lot on her behavior that felt to me a little slut shamey.
So I disagree slightly. And so here's where I'll agree with you and disagree with you respectfully. Yes, of course, I think that's part of it. And I think there's plenty of sexism baked in all of this. But I think it's just the hypocrisy. And if you're an establishment Republican, she is shining a bright flashlight on the fact that you guys don't exactly always say what you mean and mean what you say, right? So here she is on the one hand decrying drag shows and talking about traditional family values and shaming trans kids and doing all sorts of nasty stuff.
Right.
And then over here she's getting frisky and free in a theater, which doesn't bother me as a human being. The hypocrisy is what bothers me.
And it made establishment Republicans who have stood by her feel dumb, I think, and feel that was something that she couldn't defend. She couldn't blame Joe Biden for that. She couldn't say it was the media that trapped her. Although, online, some of these right-wing forums, they have tried to imply that this was some kind of a setup.
Quinn Gallagher, Democrat. By the way, he's
hilarious.
not a Democrat, never
Hope
has
that's
been one. We looked him up. He's unaffiliated.
Right.
But it's a false flag. He was a setup. It was he seduced her into a theater and then planted the camera right at the...
Yes.
It's wacky stuff, y'all.
But that's the other part of it, is that this was not political. This was just a reflection of who she really is and there was no way to cover it up with politics. And I think it made a lot of Republicans go, ew, gross.
Okay, sure. However, here's my beef. I came across 2 Gazette editorials, and one was they endorsed her challenger, Jeff Hurd.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a quote. Boebert has a seemingly intractable image problem, which is manifested in lackluster financial support. She appears divisive at a time when voters want peace. Western Slope voters value statesmanship, moderation, diplomacy, and soft-spoken strength, none of which defines their member of the House. They perceive Boebert as seeking celebrity status more than results, which they frown upon. Okay, backtrack.
Have you heard of Donald Trump?
Gazette endorsement, Donald Trump, 2020. Quote, oh, we get it. Trump's personality and character traits nauseate a significant segment of voters. Colorado's mostly white-collar population finds no charm in Trump's brazen, crude, and unconventional demeanor, see Winston Churchill. Yet, never has a presidential candidate's persona been less relevant. So Trump can do it. Trump can grab him by the pussy. Ooh. Lauren Boebert can't get felt up in Beetlejuice? Like, what is, I genuinely, I don't want to defend her, but misogyny is like stinking off of this story to me.
This is also about winning and losing. Boebert came within 546 votes of not being reelected. Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee for president, which means you've got, essentially a 50-50 chance of being president. Boebert, according to polling and anecdotal data and everything and fundraising, she's likely to lose in 2024. So part of why now is like, Trump could win, so we're going to stay with him. Boebert is going to lose. We need someone else before she loses.
But I think it all goes back to her being a woman is partially why she's in this position.
I mean, they're making the same argument against different people for different people. They're like, please ignore this man because he's a dude and he gets to do it. And then over here, we're judgy. The other thing I just want to point out is like, let's not get too crazy and assume that the Gazette editorial board is intellectually honest or consistent.
No, but it was the best example in the state that I could find of what I felt the moment I saw the Boebert
like a
stuff
big
picking up.
On the misogyny.
It was just like, oh, this is now our problem with Lauren Boebert. Now we have a problem with her. And Trump does the same shit, but worse on a larger stage for decades.
Right.
But Trump, I guess you're right. So that's the answer. Trump can win.
To Jason's point, let's talk about the district's fundamentals a little bit because I think it's important. The district was drawn by the Redistricting Commission to basically be an R+10, right? That means Republicans should have a 10-point margin, 55-45 essentially in a two-way race every normal election. In the first time she won by 10 points. So the district, they didn't really know what she was getting into. So she won the district by the numbers that the district kind of dictates all by itself. Progress Now Colorado organization I used to run did a poll in April of 2022 that showed the generic vote for Congress among CD3 residents was 38 Democrat, 49 Republican. So that's 11. So that backs that up, right? When they asked Boebert versus Frisch head to head, it was a dead heat. It was 50-50 with like a small margin of error. So she's underperforming the district by almost 10 points, if not more, right? That's the problem right there.
Regardless
because a generic
of this
Republican
problem
well,
situation.
The decorum is why she's that bad, right? If she were Doug Lamborn, we wouldn't be talking about her.
This episode is brought to you by us. Because CityCast was just named Adweek's Podcast Innovator of the Year. And you've probably noticed why. CityCast ads don't sound like other podcast ads. That's because we're not just reciting national scripts. We're using our own words to talk about local businesses we know and care about. Like those ads we made with the real bad boys of Bad Boy Boards, or my personal favorite, the Girl Scouts. Sometimes CityCast ads are hilarious. They're frequently passionate. They're always heartfelt. And that's the thing about doing ads for businesses that are part of the city you care about. This is personal for us. Our hearts are in it. And when you place an ad with CityCast, our hearts are in that too. So if you're interested in getting your business or product in front of people who care about the city as much as we do, consider placing an ad with CityCast, the Podcast Innovator of the Year. Place an ad today in the cities that matter to your company. Reach out at ads@citycast.fm. That's ads@citycast.fm.
Well, that's where I want to talk about, because ever since the Beetlebird scandal, I reached out to Boebert's office for an interview, was declined, but I've got on her email list, and so I keep track of what she's been doing now since then.
Oh, they popped you on the press list?
Yeah,
that's great.
It is great, honestly. I can follow what she's actually doing, because you Democrats, to be honest, always are hitting her for like
what they say she's doing.
Exactly what they say she's doing.
Right.
But what they say she's doing is actual meaningful legislation that I think seems to matter to conservatives in her district, like this Pueblo Jobs Act. It's about changing a chemical depot. Yep. Yeah, she's trying really hard. The wolves thing is the big one, I think, because she's trying to delist gray wolves at the exact time that gray wolves are going to be reintroduced to the state. The Cattlemen's Association sued to stop this. There's at least one more. Yeah, so she wants people to be able to shoot them,
right.
which is what ranchers want.
Those are Western Slope issues.
She understands that she needs to appear to be focusing on Western Slope issues. A lot of the stuff she's doing in Congress is going nowhere and isn't going to pass. And she just points out that, look, I drafted, something, but she seems to understand that it's been what, 4 years almost, and she's never really done anything.
Well, this is what I mean. Put it this way, like she's doing this right now. Yeah. As a result of her super close call in 2022. And suddenly she's into legislating, and suddenly she's into bills, and suddenly she's into Pueblo. None of that was happening for the last 3 years, right? It's only as a result of her super close election that she's like, oh, crap. I can't just be right-wing celebrity on the internet. I have to actually do stuff for the people who sent me there because I've tanked my own number so badly I can't win in a safe Republican district automatically.
But she's got time. We got 6 months. The primary's in June. If she delivers on gray wolves, if she can get her rancher constituents a big win.
Have you seen this Congress?
I've heard a few things about this Congress.
There is no way she gets a bill passed.
Well,
no chance. She just has no. What would you do if you were her?
I would have done this a long time ago, but I think she's doing what she should do. It's too late. And because this Congress is so dysfunctional under these House Republicans who hate government, I don't see how anything gets passed. They've since this Republican-led Congress has been in session, they've passed a budget and
yeah, and that's the end of the list.
Oh, they threw out their House Speaker.
Oh yeah. They did.
That's
right. And that's all.
That was a good vote.
So you guys are saying too little, too late.
Brittany likes to say that she voted for Hakeem Jeffries like 27 times, and that's the most votes she's taken in Congress.
This is your wife, Brittany Pedersen, who represents Lakewood.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so to your point, I don't see how I don't see how anybody passes anything.
So you think she has no chance
of getting this stuff,
of holding on to her seat?
I don't think no chance, but I think I'd put it at 80-20.
Against? Like primary and general, or primary?
Both, because she has to.
I think I'm with you on that, but I think she wins the primary and then loses the general.
Because win or lose the primary,
Okay.
she drains a majority of her resources.
Correct, because she has to survive that in order to win the general, and then she'll walk into a $5 million Adam Frisch buzzsaw.
So she's crippled coming out of the primary, even if she wins.
And you should never be in the situation as an incumbent in a safe district. Like the plan here is to raise enough to scare off any legitimate primary opponent, make sure you crush them in the primary. She beat Don Coram, 65-35. That's how that's supposed to look. And then win the general by a huge margin that matches your district's fundamentals, and then do it again in 2 years. She beat Coram 65-35, but then only beat Frisch by 546 votes. And now she's in the untenable position. And this is rare for an incumbent member of Congress, of having a very hard primary and a very hard general.
And at the same time, her fundraising is going down because the bigger groups, the bigger donors are leaving her.
And the grassroots folks are walking away for the reasons we discussed earlier. They're some of them are actual true believer, right-wing evangelical, moralist types, and they can't give money to the Beetlebird lady.
A large part of her money comes from small donors out of state who when she says...
Sort of part of the MAGA contingent.
Yeah, it's Bingo. She presses the Joe Biden is a jerk button, and then they send her $5.
Okay. And do you think that's worn off as well?
I think that's what is keeping her afloat. at this
there
point.
There are
It's still
other
that.
better people who aren't as morally hazardous as she is in that lane right now. Like, if that's your game, give to Marjorie Taylor Greene or Chip Roy or Ted Cruz. Like, there's plenty of hands out.
But she's not running against them. She's running against this Hurd
but they're saying
guy.
like
These are
nationally,
national people.
when national
I know she
people
has this
donate,
asset. She has a very strong brand nationally. People are supporting her nationally,
Right.
but she's running against this guy,
But
Jeff
this
Hurd.
is why I think that she's actually going to be okay in the primary, because the electorate that's going to vote in the Colorado Republican primary in 2024 is very specifically grassrootsy, real conservative Western Slope and Southern Colorado Republicans. So that's why I'm not as bullish as Jason is on her chances of losing the primary, because I think most people will be like, Hurd's either a wet blanket or a rhino or too moderate or whatever, and we need a fighter, and she's our fighter. And in the general, if it was Boebert Hurd would probably win the general election if it was just the two of them somehow. But in Colorado, we have partisan primaries and then partisan general elections. So only Republicans in the primary and then a D versus an R typically in the general. And I think she'll beat Hurd by a 60-40 type, 55-45 maybe if she's having a really bad night margin. And then I think Frisch probably beats her by like up to 5 points in the general.
See, I think it's tighter in the primary because of the way it's going right now. You've got the Gazette newspaper endorsing her opponent out of, kind of out of nowhere.
And like a weird time in the clock too.
Yeah,
Like,
weird time of the
early
year.
December,
right.
6 months. Yeah,
That signals to me, and I think to Ian also, that there are big players, big Republican names who are pushing this.
The establishment flare gun went up.
Right.
and they were like, "Get her out,"
Yeah.
because they
It's-
probably need that time to get this new guy.
It's former Senator Hank Brown, University of Colorado former President Bruce Benson, former Attorney General and Mayor of Colorado Springs John Suthers, Bill Owens, former last Republican governor, Jane Norton, last Republican lieutenant governor. So these are the big wigs. These are the, Phil Anschutz owns the Gazette. They all probably go to the same golf club or whatever, and
So
the word went out.
publicly supporting Hurd.
Right.
Yep. They are supporting her.
Cut her loose. And these are all, they have all endorsed Hurd.
And they've been specific about saying, we don't think Boebert can win a general election anymore. We need Hurd.
Well, one last thing I just want to talk about really quick is like, we talked a little bit about Trump, but when we're talking about Trump on the ballot, right? It's like we're looking towards a presidential election in 2024, possibly Trump versus Biden.
Probably.
Like
Almost surely.
But I feel like that also brings more, that we know that more people vote during these elections. Like, do you think that Trump's name on this ballot will impact her chances in any way?
I don't think it helps. I think it helps turnout perhaps in her district.
But it doesn't necessarily mean turnout for her.
Yeah, not for her.
Okay.
But, it's hard to I would expect turnout to be lower than it has been relatively to other presidential races because Colorado's not on the map anymore.
No, we have worked ourselves right into that blue side
We're
of the
solid blue.
spectrum.
It's not.
There's not going to be a single dime spent by a presidential election in this state.
There's no reason.
But to your point about Trump, which is an interesting one, the generic presidential vote, or rather the named presidential vote in that district in April of last year, Biden 41, Trump 49. So 49% of CD3 voters are willing to pull the lever for Donald Trump, despite it all, and a congressional Republican.
But more of them will vote for Biden than will vote for Boebert.
That's a great way to put it, actually. And when it comes to Boebert, it is 45-45. 45 for Frisch, 45 for Boebert. The other 10, undecided.
So it's going to be a tough one.
But I think we'd both be surprised at this point if a year from now Lauren Boebert is still in Congress.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. Different pathways to defeat,
Right.
But I think we're both pretty convinced that she's on the losing side of the coin right now. And she did it to herself.
Well, Ian and Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Hey, it's great to be here.
You too, Paul.
See you next time, Bree.
After we recorded this conversation with Jason and Ian, the Colorado Supreme Court shifted the balance of power in this race. The Denver Post reported that the court ruled Tuesday in a 4-3 decision that former President Donald Trump is barred from appearing on a primary ballot in Colorado. The case is widely expected to go before the U.S. Supreme Court, so we'll keep you posted as the story develops. That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell a Colorado Congressional District 3 voter about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you later.
we have an entire text group that can't reference anything past like 2001.
Yeah.
Because like most people are like in their 40s and just stopped watching TV at that point.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah. No. So it's all like, Home Alone came back in a good way this holiday season.
Good film.